In the quiet town of Millbrook, where fields stretched like a patchwork quilt and factory chimneys pierced the grey sky, Thomas Harrison fought a silent battle against misfortune. His weathered hands, calloused from years of hard work, told a story of endless struggle and unbroken spirit. 2 years had passed since Emma, his beloved wife, had been taken by a sudden illness, leaving him alone to care for their young daughter, Lucy. The farm, once a symbol of family pride, now stood as a fragile reminder of everything he was desperately trying to save. Thomas would wake before dawn, his tired eyes scanning the fading family photographs that hung in the small farmhouse kitchen. Lucy, now 8 years old, would watch her father with a mixture of worry and admiration. She knew their life was balanced on a knife's edge, though she was too young to fully understand the financial storm brewing around them. The farm had been in the Harrison family for generations. Thomas's grandfather had purchased the land with hope and determination, transforming wild grasslands into productive fields. Now those same fields seemed to whisper stories of past struggles and present challenges. Bank notices arrived like unwelcome guests, each envelope a sharp reminder of their precarious situation. Thomas would carefully open them, his hands trembling, slightly, trying to shield Lucy from the growing worry that consumed his thoughts. The mortgage payments had become an impossible mountain to climb. By day, Thomas worked double shifts at the local factory, his body aching from physical labor. By night, he would tend to the farm, fixing broken fences, checking on livestock, and trying to coax life from soil that seemed increasingly unforgiving. The tractor, inherited from his father, made strange noises and required constant repair, another expense they could ill afford. Lucy tried to help in her own small ways. She would collect eggs from the chickens, carefully placing them in a woven basket her mother had once used. She'd help her father mend simple things around the farm, her small hands threading wire or holding tools with a seriousness that belied her young age. Winter in Millbrook was particularly harsh that year. Cold winds swept across empty fields. Hand frost covered the windows like delicate lace. Thomas knew they were just weeks away from losing everything: the land, the house, the last remnants of his family's legacy. One particularly cold evening, as Lucy sat doing her homework at the kitchen table, Thomas spread out the financial documents. The numbers seemed to dance mockingly before his eyes. Foreclosure was no longer a distant threat, but an imminent reality. "We'll find a way," Thomas whispered, more to himself than to Lucy. But his voice carried a tremor of uncertainty that he tried desperately to hide. Lucy looked up, her eyes bright with a hope that only children can maintain in the face of overwhelming challenges. "Don't worry, Dad," she said, her small hand reaching out to touch his. "Everything will be okay." Her words, simple and pure, were like a balm to Thomas's troubled soul. He realized that beyond the financial struggle, beyond the potential loss of land, his greatest treasure was sitting right beside him. The farm had always been more than just land and crops. It was a story of family, of resilience, of hope passed down through generations. Thomas's grandfather had survived economic depressions, his father had weathered agricultural challenges, and now it was his turn to fight. As night fell and the farmhouse creaked with memories, Thomas made a silent promise. He would not let their story end here. He would find a way to keep their home, to honor the legacy of those who had worked this land before him. Outside, a lone wolf howled in the distance, a sound both mournful and wild. Inside, Thomas and Lucy sat together, united in their vulnerability, but stronger in their connection. The farm might be struggling, but their spirit remained unbroken. Little did they know that their journey was about to take an unexpected turn. That help would come from the most surprising of places, and that their story of survival was just beginning to unfold. The night grew deeper, and with it, a sense of quiet determination settled over the Harrison farm, a beacon of hope in the darkness waiting for dawn. Margaret Williams watched Thomas Harrison struggle from a distance, her keen teacher's eyes noting the quiet desperation that seemed to hover around the farm. She had known the family for years, had taught Lucy in her small-town school, and understood the weight of single parenthood all too well. The town of Millbrook was changing. Factories were closing, farms were struggling, and a sense of hopelessness was spreading like a slow-moving disease. But Margaret was not the type to sit back and watch people suffer. Her own life had taught her the power of community and collective action. One crisp morning, she began making phone calls. Not official calls, but personal ones, to local business owners, to farmers, to anyone who might listen. She spoke with a passion that was both gentle and fierce, describing Thomas's situation and the potential impact on their entire community. At the local community center, Margaret organized a meeting. She wasn't a politician or a community leader, just a school teacher with a heart full of determination. The room filled slowly, farmers, shop owners, factory workers, retired residents, each bringing their own story of struggle. Thomas almost didn't come. Pride made him hesitate, the thought of asking for help burning like a hot coal in his chest, but Lucy's encouragement and Margaret's gentle persistence finally won out. He arrived late, uncomfortable and slightly embarrassed. The meeting was unlike anything Millbrook had seen before. Margaret laid out a simple plan, a community support network that would help struggling families like Thomas's. It wasn't about charity, she explained, but about mutual support and survival. Local farmers agreed to share equipment. The hardware store owner offered discounted repair services. The bakery promised to buy local produce. Each person brought something to the table, a tool, a skill, a connection. Thomas sat quietly, overwhelmed by the sudden show of support. He was a proud man, used to solving his own problems, but as he looked around the room, he saw not pity, but genuine care and understanding. Lucy sat beside her father, her eyes bright with hope. She had been watching the community's struggles, understanding more than most children her age. The meeting represented something more than just saving their farm. It was about saving their entire community. Margaret shared stories of other towns that had successfully implemented similar support networks. She spoke of resilience, of collective strength, of the power of human connection. Her words were simple but powerful, cutting through years of individual isolation. The local school became a key player in the plan. Students began creating handmade crafts to raise funds. They organized small events, learned about local agriculture, and became active participants in community support. Lucy found herself at the center of these efforts, her natural leadership beginning to shine. As weeks passed, the community network began to take shape. Thomas found himself receiving help in unexpected ways, a neighbor fixing a broken fence, another lending a piece of equipment, someone else offering temporary work. During tough months, the farm began to show signs of recovery. It wasn't a miracle, but a result of collective effort. Thomas started to understand that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness, but of true strength. Margaret continued to be the quiet force behind the movement. She wasn't looking for recognition, just results. Her own life had taught her the importance of standing up for others, of creating connections when everything seemed disconnected. The town of Millbrook was changing. What had once been a place of silent struggle was becoming a community of active support. Farms that were once on the brink of collapse began to find new hope. Families that had felt isolated now felt connected. As the first signs of spring began to show, Thomas looked at his farm with new eyes. The land looked different, not just as a piece of property, but as part of a larger, interconnected community. Lucy played in the fields, her laughter a testament to renewed hope. Margaret watched from a distance, a quiet smile on her face. This was more than just saving a farm. This was about rebuilding a community, one connection at a time. The unexpected ally had not been a single person, but the collective spirit of a town that decided to stand together. Robert Peterson had seen many farms come and go, but something about Thomas Harrison's story caught his attention. A successful businessman with roots in farming, Robert understood the challenges of rural life better than most. At first, Thomas was skeptical. Local businessmen had rarely brought good news to struggling farmers, but Robert was different. He arrived at the farm one cool spring morning, his clean city clothes a stark contrast to Thomas's worn work clothes. "I have a proposition," Robert said, his voice calm and direct. He explained a cooperative farming model that could help small landowners survive and potentially thrive. It wasn't charity, It was a practical business solution that could transform local agriculture. Lucy listened, quietly, her young eyes darting between her father and Robert. She could sense the tension, the careful dance of hope and doubt that filled the farmhouse kitchen. Margaret Williams, who had become a close family friend, sat nearby, her presence offering silent support. The cooperative model was simple but revolutionary. Farmers would pool their resources, share equipment, negotiate better crop contracts and support each other's production. Robert had connections with agricultural technology companies and market distributors that could help small farms compete. Thomas's initial resistance came from years of independent farming. The idea of working so closely with other farmers, of sharing profits and resources, felt foreign. But as Robert explained the details, a spark of possibility began to grow. They would diversify crops, implement sustainable farming techniques, and create a network of mutual support. Robert showed spreadsheets and projections that demonstrated how small farms could become economically viable again. Lucy's school project became unexpectedly relevant. Her research on community support and agricultural sustainability aligned perfectly with Robert's proposal. She became an unexpected champion, her enthusiasm helping to break down her father's doubts. The local community meeting that followed was electric with possibility. Farmers who had been struggling alone suddenly saw a path forward. Robert's business expertise, combined with the community's agricultural knowledge, created a powerful vision. Technical support became a key component. Younger farmers learned new technologies while experienced farmers shared traditional knowledge. It wasn't about replacing old methods, but about finding a balance between innovation and tradition. Thomas began to see the farm differently. It was no longer just a piece of land to be defended, but part of a larger ecosystem of agricultural innovation. His daughter's excitement was infectious, her hope rekindling his own passion. Margaret's role continued to be crucial. She helped coordinate educational programs, ensuring that local schools supported the new agricultural model. Children like Lucy learned about sustainable farming, community support, and economic resilience. The first harvest under the new cooperative model was modest but promising. Farms that had been on the brink of collapse began to show signs of recovery. Equipment was shared, knowledge was exchanged, and a sense of collective purpose emerged. Robert didn't just provide a business model, he became a mentor. He understood that economic survival was about more than numbers. It was about human connection, shared vision, and mutual respect. Lucy's school project gained national attention. Documentaries and agricultural magazines began to write about the Millbrook cooperative model. What had started as a local solution was becoming a potential blueprint for rural economic revival. Thomas found himself teaching other farmers the techniques he was learning. His farm, once a symbol of struggle, was now becoming a model of possibility. The land that had nearly been lost was now a source of hope and inspiration. The cooperative wasn't just about farming. It represented a new way of thinking about community, about survival, about hope. Farmers who had been isolated now found strength in their connections. As summer approached, the fields looked different. They were no longer individual plots of land, but part of a larger, interconnected landscape of possibility. The community that had once been divided by economic struggle was now united by a shared vision. Robert watched from a distance, knowing that this was about more than business. This was about rebuilding hope, one farm at a time. Thomas and Lucy represented something more than a single family's story. They were a symbol of resilience and transformation. The turning point had come, not with a dramatic moment, but with fair, quiet understanding that together they could create something extraordinary. Spring arrived with a gentle promise of renewal, transforming the Harrison farm into something more than just a piece of land. Thomas watched as the first green shoots pushed through the soil, each plant a testament to their hard-fought survival. Lucy had become the farm's unofficial ambassador. Her school project about community support had caught the attention of local media, and soon their story was spreading beyond Millbrook. Journalists came to photograph the farm, capturing the transformation that seemed almost miraculous. Margaret continued to be their guardian angel. She helped Lucy with her studies, tutoring her during long evenings in the farmhouse kitchen. Her presence was a constant reminder of the community's support, a bridge between struggle and hope. The cooperative farming model had changed everything. Thomas now worked with neighboring farmers, sharing equipment, knowledge, and hope. Where there was once isolation, there was now connection. The farm produced more than just crops. It produced a sense of possibility. Sustainable farming techniques became their new philosophy. They planted diverse crops, used natural pest control, and worked with the land instead of against it. Lucy learned about crop rotation, soil health, and the delicate balance of agriculture. Robert Peterson continued to provide guidance, but he was more than just a business mentor now. He had become a friend, someone who understood the deeper value of community over pure profit. His visits to the farm were moments of shared vision and hope. The farm's transformation attracted attention from agricultural schools and sustainable farming organizations. Students would visit, learning about the cooperative model that had saved not just one farm, but an entire community's agricultural future. Lucy's enthusiasm was infectious. She spoke at local events, sharing how community support had saved her family's farm. Her simple, honest words touched people in ways that complex economic arguments never could. She became a symbol of hope for struggling rural communities. Thomas found healing in unexpected ways. The constant worry that had lined his face began to soften. He laughed more, worked with a new sense of purpose, and reconnected with the land in a way he had almost forgotten. The financial stability brought more than just economic security. It brought back joy to the farm. Lucy could now dream about future possibilities. She talked about studying agricultural science, about continuing the work her family had started. Neighboring farms began to adopt similar models. What had started as a local experiment was becoming a movement. Farmers who had once competed now collaborated, sharing resources and knowledge. Margaret organized community events that celebrated their success. Local schools developed programs about sustainable agriculture, inspired by the Harrison Farm story. Lucy often spoke to students, sharing the importance of community and resilience. The farm became more than just a source of income. It was a learning center, a symbol of hope, a place where community and agriculture intersected. Thomas found purpose in mentoring younger farmers, sharing the lessons he had learned. Seasonal changes brought new challenges, but now they had the support to face them. The cooperative network meant that no farmer was truly alone anymore. Each challenge became an opportunity for collective problem-solving. Lucy's connection to the land grew stronger. She understood now that farming was more than just growing crops. It was about nurturing a community, supporting life, creating connections. The emotional healing was as significant as the economic recovery. Families that had been on the brink of losing everything now found hope. The farm represented more than survival. It represented the power of human connection. As summer approached, the fields were a vibrant testament to their journey. Crops grew strong, diverse, full of potential. The farm that had once been on the verge of foreclosure now stood as a beacon of possibility. Thomas would often sit with Lucy on the farmhouse porch, watching the sunset over their land. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. They had survived. They had thrived. The healing wasn't just about the land or the farm. It was about a family finding its way back to hope, about a community rediscovering its strength, about the power of standing together when everything seems lost. 5 years had passed since that critical moment when the Harrison farm seemed destined for failure. Now it stood as a symbol of hope and resilience, a living testament to the power of community and determination. Lucy, now a confident teenager, walked through the fields with a purpose that belied her young age. She had become more than just a farmer's daughter. She was a community leader, an advocate for sustainable agriculture, and a beacon of inspiration for rural communities. The cooperative farming model they had pioneered had spread far beyond. Millbrook. Agricultural schools now studied their approach, and young farmers from across the country came to learn from Thomas and Lucy's experience. What had started as a desperate survival strategy had become a revolutionary approach to farming. Thomas watched his daughter with a mixture of pride and wonder. The worried father, who had once feared losing everything, had transformed into a respected mentor and community leader. His weathered hands now told a story of triumph rather than struggle. Margaret, now retired, remained a close family friend. She continued to support local educational initiatives, her passion for community development undiminished by age. Her guidance had been instrumental in their journey, a quiet force of hope and support. The farm had become more than just a place of agricultural production. It was a learning center, a community hub, a place where hope took root and grew. Workshops, educational programs, and community events filled the calendar. Lucy's school project had evolved into a national movement. Documentaries, academic papers, and agricultural magazines featured their story. She spoke at conferences, sharing how community support could transform rural economies. Robert Peterson continued to support their efforts, now more as a friend than a business mentor. His initial business proposition had grown into something far more meaningful, a genuine commitment to rural community development. The farm produced not just crops, but opportunities. Young farmers found mentorship, students found learning experiences, and the community found a model of hope. Each harvest was a celebration of collective effort and resilience. Technology played a crucial role in their success. Smart farming techniques, sustainable practices, and innovative approaches transformed their agricultural model. Lucy had become as comfortable with agricultural technology as she was with traditional farming methods. The financial stability they had fought so hard to achieve now allowed them to give back. They created scholarship programs for young farmers, supported local agricultural education, and continued to mentor struggling farm families. Thomas found a new purpose in sharing their story. He wrote articles, spoke at community events, and became a voice for rural communities facing economic challenges. His journey from near failure to success inspired countless others. Lucy's dreams had expanded beyond the farm. She planned to study agricultural science with hopes of developing even more sustainable farming techniques. Her vision extended far beyond their local community. The cooperative model they had developed had become a blueprint for rural economic development. Other communities began adopting similar approaches, seeing the power of collective support and shared resources. Margaret's influence continued to be felt. The educational programs she had helped develop now reached schools across the region, teaching young people about community support, sustainable agriculture, and economic resilience. Robert's business perspective had merged with their community-focused approach. He now invested in rural development projects, seeing the potential for economic and social transformation in community-driven initiatives. The farm was more than a business now. It was a living, breathing example of what could be achieved through hope, hard work, and community support. Each field told a story of survival and possibility. As the sun set on another successful farming season, Thomas and Lucy stood together on the farmhouse porch. The land that had once seemed destined for failure now stretched before them, a vibrant testament to their journey. Their story was no longer just about saving a farm. It was about the power of human connection, the importance of community, and the endless possibilities that emerge when people stand together. The new beginning they had fought so hard for had become a reality, not just for them, but for an entire community that had rediscovered its hope and potential.